What's happening, folks? Today we're going to take this Next.js Supabase starter kit and ask Cursor to convert it into an AI agent application. And we're going to have Supabase authentication implemented, and we're going to log all of our messages in the Supabase database. And we're going to connect our web application with Langflow API, which is going to provide us with nice user interface to drag and drop and build AI agent flow. And all of this is going to be done using prompt coding, which means we're just going to ask Cursor to do all the work for us, and we're just going to approve the code changes that it makes for us. And if there are any errors, we're going to ask Cursor to help solve it for us. To get started, we're going to use the Next.js Supabase starter kit. This is something provided by Next.js team, and it has many essential things that we're going to be using, like the authentication, the styling, as well as the database. Now, we are not going to clone and follow through all the steps. Rather, we're going to take the repo link and then provide that directly to Cursor so that we are provided instructions from within Cursor rather than following through everything provided here. I have a blank folder available, which I'm going to open in Cursor and then navigate to that folder. Great, I'm going to click that, open it in Cursor. Now it should open a blank Cursor window, and then we are going to start chatting here. So I had a few chats that I can see from before, but what I'm going to do is just to get started again, I'm going to click new chat and then ask the same question. Now we can ask Cursor to help us get started with the starter kit. I'm just going to paste the link here, and now it knows where to visit. It automatically does the tag and link formatting for us. With that, we can just hit enter. We want to keep it very simple prompts here. I know there are some folks who want to use specialized prompts, but that's not necessarily needed. That's a benefit of using AI tools. It will help us walk through many of the questions throughout the building process. And there are certain times you might be confused, but you can ask Cursor as what to do. So in this case, now we see that it's asking us to first make sure we have the Node.js installed. If not, you can install this. So this is something available easily. You can Google this and install it on your machine. Since I have that, I'm going to go to the next step, which is to open terminal and run this. The terminal is available for us here. So we're just going to hit run, and it will ask a few questions. So first thing is that it needs to install this create next app, which I'm fine with. And then next is the project name. I'm going to call this agent chat. Now it's going to do the rest for us. This is from the starter kit. So that's done. We can run the following commands if needed. I'm going to follow the steps mentioned by Cursor. So we enter the project name, and then the installation is complete. Now we can go into the project, and after that we need to set up Supabase project. So I'm going to cd, and it's available for us. So I'm just going to copy and paste here. And in here there are a few project files available. The starter kit already added a few files and folders that will help us with the app building. Now I'm going to go to the next step to create a new Supabase project. I created a new account in Supabase, and I'm going to create a new project here. I'm going to give it some name and password and create a new project. Now the project is setting. We can go back and look at the next steps. We have to create these two files. We are just going to run this. Any error that we get in the terminal or while running the app, we want to maximize using the AI features available in Cursor. There is an option to add this to the chat or debug with AI. Now I'm going to ask to solve this, and I am providing the code base. You can either do at code base, so at, and you'll have an option to attach the code base, or chat together with the code base. Either option works. So I'm just going to add code base and ask how to solve the issue that we ran into. Now it came back with a few suggestions. The first is to check if there is an env file available. If we run that, we see that there are env files available. We can also see it here. I am going to change the name for that. So I'm going to run the other command to convert the .env.example to local, which is done right now. If we don't see that file, we can create one, but we know that it is available for us. Now, this is the file that we want to change. So .env.local. And within that, we see the first few lines that is recommended based on cursor, as well as the project repo instructions, which you can always refer back to. So that's exactly what we are going to do next. Now we're going to go to the agent app. This is within Supabase, and I'm going to click connect. And now we see that we have some options as how we can connect from here. So we're going to go to the app framework, and in here we can see the file. So env.local, this is exactly what we're going to copy. Now this is something you definitely want to keep secret. In my case, I'm going to be regenerating these or deleting the application right after the recording. Let's go back, and I'm going to add it to my env.local file. And with this, we should have the connection available and working with Supabase. Now let's look at the next step. We can run this command. So I'm going to hit run, and with that, we should have something running at localhost. Let's give it a few seconds, and then we can click the link. And once we click the link, we see that there is something that pulls up. This is the Starterkit webpage that we have seen earlier. We can sign up for a new account. So I'm going to create a new account real quick. If I were to sign up, it asks us to verify the link, which I did in a separate browser. So I'm going to sign in with that account, and then we will see that there are some details available from this template that we know that the user is authenticated. And just to double check, we can go back within our Supabase, we can go to the authentication, and in here we can see that the user was authenticated and added to users table. Okay, now we know that the landing page is still very basic, so we want to modify this. To help with that, we're going to go to v0.dev, which is provided by Vercel. I'm going to ask that I want a high converting SaaS landing page. You can start with a basic prompt and iterate, or if you have something in mind, just provide that info, especially something about the app, as what is the app going to do, and perhaps a few benefits or some sort of styling instructions, and then you can later iterate as needed. I'm going to start with this base version and see how it generates the first version. So it gave a nice first version of the app where it has animations, gradients, different cards. That's very nice. I'm going to ask it to make it even better. Let's see if it does any better or not. We can always go back to this version and use this if needed. All right, so we got V2 of the landing page, and this looks quite nice actually. It's got the techie feel to it, and it's got animations, glow, gradients, and a bunch of other things. Gonna go with that. As of this recording, we can install directly with this button, and it is a command that can add the UI that we see to our application. But we're going to take the help of Cursor and copy the code that's available to us, add it to Cursor, and then ask Cursor to make changes for us. There's also some instructions available here by this tool. It says to make sure that we install some of the dependencies. We'll take the installation instructions from here, go back to our terminal. We have an option either to stop the app or to create a new terminal. I'm going to do that. Since we know we are in the tutorials folder, not the agent chat folder, I'm going to quickly go into that folder, and then we will paste the command. So we have the packages installed. Next is I'm going to go back to the code and take the code from V0 and ask Cursor to make a few changes. Now I can definitely ask in chat as what to do and how to do it, or I can ask the cursor. I am going to hit Command I, which opens the composer. And now I'm going to provide a command in the composer to help me generate landing page. And I'm referring to this component here, and I'm asking for it to keep everything within the folder agent chat. Since that is not our workflow folder, we had to change our directory to go in. Now with that, I am gonna paste the code that we got and just hit run. Once we hit run, we can see that it's going to be generating the code for us right away. So as soon as it start typing, then the components that start changing, we can view it right now on our left side. It seems like it generated a bunch of components and added the enhanced landing page here. Also, you can see all of the components, those were added. We have an option to either accept individually or accept all together. So I'm just going to accept all. Now I'm going to quickly check. So it seems like this particular component has an error, and I can quickly go to the component it's talking about. I don't see any code here, so I can talk to Composer and ask it to generate that since it's missing that particular component. I'm going to ask for it to write the component properly. Okay, great. Now we see that it was added. So I'm going to accept that as well. As you can see, there are a few times that cursor is probably not going to generate the response you're looking for. You might want to talk to it to make some changes. I also noticed that if your folder is not the folder you're working in, it might create files outside a few times. So you might want to guide it to use the folder you're looking the files to be in, or just make sure that when you open cursor to open with that folder instead of the tutorials folder, which is parent folder to the folder we're working in. Great, so we made a lot of changes. Let's go back and see how our web page looks. Now, coming back to our web page, we see that it added the page that we wanted, but it seems like it kept everything separately as a different component. We're going to ask for it to include the sign in, sign up page within the landing page or the enhanced landing page that we have, and then everything else we can take that out. I asked for it to modify our landing page so that we are taking the full space, and then we should have sign up and sign in button. So we just want to take the nav part out and the footer as well. Basically, I want the full space to be taken by our landing page. Now at the end, what we see is we're taking the full space. This is our landing page without any of the previously shown nav bar. But then also we have these buttons here. So one could sign up, and that brings to the sign up screen or sign in. Although it's not necessarily centered, we can ask Composer to change that for us. But for now, at least this is a good starting point where we have our landing page showing properly. Now I'm going to go to the layout within the auth pages because I know these are the pages which are given issue. I could have selected the folder, but I just selected layout, and I'm going to ask for the Composer to make changes so that the children are centered, and I'm going to hit enter here. So now it made a few changes here that I can see, which is hopefully centered. So we're just going to accept and see what happens. So now if we go to sign in or sign up, we notice that everything is centered. We can also ask for it to center vertically if needed, but you know the drill, you can move things around. So for now, I'm just going to sign in, and then I will go to protected page. This is the page basically, which is, you could consider this as dashboard, or if you want in your application, you could make this the chat page, which is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be asking our Composer here to help us out with a couple of things. We know that it's within app and within protected. This is the page where we need to make changes. I just went there to check what code is in there. It's minimal. It's just pulling this fetch data steps as one of the components. I would like to ask Composer for three things here. One is to build a UI for chat, and this is something we're going to be using v0. Next is the connection with Langflow API, and this is something we can use Astra for free version of Langflow with an API. And third is we want to save all conversation with the Langflow API within Supabase. So we have all the sessions and the conversation saved in our database. So for step one, in addition to our landing page, I asked for it to create another page, which is for chatting with the agent and has nice interface. So it generated this chat, which is quite nice. I can type and you can see that it's showing some sort of loading message as well as a nice chat interface. What I want to do is I want to add maybe chat history to this. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT just for a simple chat interface with some history on the left side. I'm going to take a screenshot of this, and now I'm going to attach the screenshot with a short prompt saying also add a section for chat history like ChatGPT, which we can open and close as needed. This is the new chat page, which is also similar to last one, though the difference is that we have a sidebar on the left side, which is what we're going to be utilizing for new sessions. Great, so we can get started with this. I'm just going to copy this and provide it to Composer. And here I'm just going to say based on this component code below and add the full component code here. Great. So for the second point, which is to connect with Langflow API, we're going to actually make an account with Langflow. If you were to Google Astra data stacks, and if you click that, you'll be taken to creating a free account. I did that. And in here, it's going to be by default on AstraDB. We're going to go to Langflow, which is in preview right now. Now, if you're doing this first time, probably you'll see that this is blank for you. What I did is I created a few agents before, so I'm going to use one of those. I'm going to use this research agent. It starts with this OpenAI tools agent, and this is available under agents. You'll see that there is the OpenAI tools agent. I brought that here to the canvas and attached 3 different tools. I pulled in the Python REPO tool, a finance news tool, and Wikipedia API. All of those are available under the tools section. I just dragged and dropped those, and then I added the OpenAI block. So this is using the GPT-4o mini, and I connected that with the language model. All of the tools are attached to the tools, and then we have the prompt. In this prompt, it's quite simple. I'm just saying that the user query is this input, and anything in the curly braces is something you can later on attach a component to. And in here, I'm saying just answer based on the user input. And that opened this input, and I just attached the chat input block available as an input component. The last thing is to also attach the chat output, so we have a complete flow. To test this, you could actually run the whole flow. I just asked for it to write a short report on 2024 Olympics, and once I ran this, I can see that it generated a short report. So that's nice. It's using the Wikipedia API. We can confirm if it used the tool or not by going to the logs. I'm going to go to the last one and just look for the last conversation. Within this, I can click the result and see that for this particular ID, there was a tool call made to Wikipedia with that query. Based on the response, we had the report generated or the chat output. So the main thing we're going to need from here is this API. I am going to just copy this curl command. We want to provide different sessions for each of the new chat generated. And the way we can do that is if we go to tweaks, we can go to the chat input block. I'm going to look for session ID, type it as test, and then go back to run curl. I see that the session ID right now is test. So you see that we're also going to need this application token, which is something you can generate up here. I already have this, so this is something I'm going to pull in directly. So first thing, what we're going to do is copy this and bring it over to Insomnia or Postman. These are tools that can help you test your API and check the response. So in this case, you can start one and say that I want to import from curl and just paste the curl command and just import. It will do the formatting for you. And now we know that we need to provide the bearer token here. All right, so I added the tokens without the greater than, lesser than sign. So we're gonna just add the token and send a message. I'm gonna say hi. Everything else looks fine. Let's just send this. Takes a few seconds. So now we get a response back, meaning that everything went fine. So we can use both of this in our composer. Second thing I'm asking is for Composer to use the API docs that we're going to provide. That's something we'll copy from Astra Langflow. So we are asking for it to save the token as environment variable, so it's not publicly available. And also the URL, something we'll save it on our .env.local file that we had created previously. And then also make sure to use the session ID. This is something we will send with each API call, and also to save conversations in our database Supabase using that session ID so that we can keep track of the history of conversations. This is important because now we can keep track of each conversation like ChatGPT does. And then I'm going to copy paste the docs from our flows. I'll go back to the curl. I'm going to copy this, paste it here. Also make sure that you add your token information here. I'm just going to do that real quick. I'll also take the response for this particular API call, and I'm going to save that as well or provide it to Composer. Great, so now Composer knows how the API call looks like. The last thing is to add the Supabase information. The command here is to make sure that we are saving the chat history for each user and also distinguishing each new chat with the session ID. This is something that we had mentioned earlier. I'm going to go to the protected page that we saw since it has some user details. It also has the next steps. So I'm just going to take all of this over to the Composer and provide that. It's always better to have docs available from Supabase. We can also tag the Supabase docs. So what I've done is I have previously indexed these, and the way you can actually do that is you can add a new doc and paste the URL from Supabase, and what's going to happen is it's going to index all of the pages so that it has knowledge. So for now I'm just adding this at the bottom saying feel free to use Supabase docs as well. And with that, now we should have everything together. We mentioned Supabase docs, the chat page. We also talked about the connection with the API. So let's see what this does. Okay, so it did generate some code here. It also provided the API call. I would have liked it to generate something within the API folder and call that function. Also, I see that there's some portion here which is not added by the composer, so I wanted to do all the work. I'm going to go in and ask to make a few changes. I went back in, I'm asking it to use the best practices based on Next.js docs, also to call APIs from server, not from client. And also I installed on the site the required packages. So I'm saying this is already installed for you. Let's see what it does now. I just had to ask to run all the steps in the conversation again. So it did all of that. Let's accept and see what it does. Okay, so it seems like it added this go to chat button here, which if we click, I see that there is some error. We're going to go to the error here, just go over the portion that is error, and you'll have an option to add to Composer. Once you do that, it's going to be available in the Composer. This is a simple command. We're just going to ask fix this, please. Okay, I had realized that in the chat page, there wasn't any code, so I had to make sure it was adding the code. Now it has this code available. The chat functionality seems to be available now, but we don't know if it's chatting directly with the API yet. We have to test if it works with Langflow. Obviously did not work because we don't have any tables available in Supabase. So I just asked for it to give me commands to run in Supabase. Just asking for me to go to SQL editor and paste these commands. I just asked for it to actually make just one table that can handle everything. Anytime we have a new chat initiated by either pressing new chat or by reloading, then we start with a new session ID. If not, just keep same session ID. And it asked for us to create this table, so I did that. Then there was another error with middleware. It made some changes actually. So I went back and asked for it to keep the original code that we got from the repo. So I gave that code and it changed the middleware for me. And then also it updated a bunch of files with that. And then later on, the last thing was it gave some errors with the response from Langflow. I asked for it to console log the response. So basically what we're sending as data to the Langflow API and what we're getting back. And I copied the response from here and provided to Composer saying this is the response format. In case if there's some issue, just fix it. And then it went ahead and changed the response format so that we have the proper response logged. With that, now we are able to save the chats in the table in Supabase. Also, we have the app working. We can go in, we can start a new chat. So for example, we can ask something that happened recently. And what's going to happen is it's going to call the Langflow API and the research agent is going to get us the response by using the Wikipedia API. We can also ask questions like write a short Python script that can detect if a number is a prime or not. and it's going to get back to us with the Python script. We can also actually run this since we have this attached as one of the tools. We can, of course, start a new chat and start asking over here as well. The formatting was not proper in the Python case, but of course we can modify this. Ask Composer what packages to install to fix this. Also, you see that this doesn't go in by default, so we can ask Composer for that as well. There are many things that could be done asking Composer, and many of the changes, as you have seen, are done automatically. You might run into some of the errors that were mentioned before, or it might be different. The key thing is to use either Composer or the chat here. Provide context. You could provide the code base context, or you could provide context by each file. And at the end, Composer will help you go through the errors and resolve them. And also the code generation that happened in my case might not be exactly same in your case. So you might have some different setup. You'll have to work with Composer to get to the end result. At the end, we have the app working. The repo for this is going to be open source, so you can go check the repo out. Let me know if you'd like more tutorials on this topic using Composer, Langflow API, or any of the technologies mentioned.